Hello everyone! Today, for my very first video, I thought that we could discuss why I'm so long. So the simple answer to that is that I was born with Marfan syndrome. You might have heard about it, even though it is quite rare, because it's kind of just the internet's favorite condition to assign to anyone who happens to be a bit taller or slimmer than what is considered normal. And because Marfan is so rare, I've always had a hard time finding people online who have Marfan syndrome and who are openly talking about it. So I thought that I would do my part and make the video that the 12-year-old me would have wanted to find. If you yourself have Marfan syndrome or you know someone who has it, maybe you have one of the conditions that are similar to Marfan. I really hope that this video will be somehow helpful or relatable to you. And if so, please leave a comment below. I'd love to connect and have a little chat and compare our experiences. Obviously, having a chronic illness really affects every aspect of your life, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what Marfan actually is, my personal story, so how I got diagnosed, my symptoms, kind of a timeline of the major operations I've had because of it, and then at the end, how it's affected my life in other ways and how my day-to-day life looks like. Without further ado, let's just get into it. And just a little disclaimer, I'm gonna be showing pictures that maybe some people will find a little bit gross, specifically of eyes. And I know that some people are extremely squeamish. I'll put some timestamps in the description so you can skip over those pictures. And also, if you see me looking down, I just have some notes here, so hopefully I won't ramble too much. Okay, so what exactly is Marfan syndrome? It's a genetic condition, which means that you can get it from your parents, and if you have kids, there's a 50% chance that you will pass it on to them. It's caused by a mutation in a specific gene, which I cannot pronounce, and that is basically responsible for making the protein that holds together your bones, your organs, and just your other body parts. So you can imagine that when you don't have it, some things tend to go a bit wrong. And like I mentioned earlier, Marfan is quite rare, and since I'm from Finland, a very small country with a very small population, it's estimated that there are only a few hundred people living with it. So, you know, I am quite special. So what is the reason that people online oftentimes do recognize Marfan syndrome? It's because people with this condition have very noticeable physical traits. So for example, being unusually tall and thin, having long arms, legs, fingers, and toes, having flexible joints, a curved spine, so scoliosis, and specific eye issues like lens dislocation. And Marfan syndrome also affects the blood vessels and the heart, particularly the aorta. Obviously, that's also not very optimal. And just a fun fact, if you're a horror movie fan, you might recognize this actor. This is Javier Botet, and he also has Marfan syndrome, and he really uses it to his advantage. He has played some very, very scary and cool monsters in horror movies, which, by the way, if you're making a short movie, a horror movie, and you're filming in Finland, please contact me. I'd love to be a little creepy ghost lady. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basics, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how I was diagnosed. It's kind of a miracle that I did get diagnosed so young, because especially at that time, that being a possibility definitely wasn't the first thing in people's minds. So I was my parents' first child, and they were quite young when they had me, but they still realized very quickly that something was a bit off with me. Marfan is not tested for during pregnancy, and even after I was actually born, I was just quite a tiny baby. Obviously, that in itself is not alarming, but then that combined with the fact that when I was growing, I wouldn't really respond to visual stimuli. If, for example, someone was reading a book to me, I would take the book and put it on my face to try and see what was on it. There were other things that cured my parents to the fact that I indeed could not see. So the first stop obviously was just to go to an eye doctor. We got super lucky because this one eye doctor knew about Marfan and sent me to get tested. This was in 2003. I was 3 years old. Knowledge or the awareness about Marfan wasn't as good as it is now, so the test had to be sent to the US, and then bada bing bada boom, I did have Marfan syndrome. Marfan is a genetic condition, so you can get it from your parents, but in my case, neither of my parents have it, and neither does anyone in my close family. So it can also just kind of be a freak accident in a way. It can just happen. So then from there, I got put on beta blockers almost immediately, because obviously they did further testing and found out that I did in fact also have a heart defect. So that's just to put as little stress as possible on your heart. And then in 2005, I had my first eye surgery, because also upon further testing, they found out that the lenses in both of my eyes were not in place and not working properly. So I'm gonna insert a little fancy medical diagram so you can see what part of the eye the lens actually is. So yes, in 2005 I got my first eye surgery on my right eye, and then in 2006 I got it on my left eye, and then they operated on my right eye once more. So I got 3 eye surgeries in total in 2 years, and I was 5 and 6 years old. After that, I was able to start using glasses. I think this is a good point to mention that if you look at my glasses now, or if you just look at my eyes, you can tell how strong my glasses are still. So the prescription for my glasses is -8, and I mean, you can clearly see like the distortion on my face as well, just from how strong the glasses are. During those 3 surgeries when I was a child, they had put artificial lenses in both of my eyes, and this particular surgery was very much in its infancy. At that time, it seemed like a great technique, that what they were using, but now later they realized that maybe it wasn't that great the way that they were doing it, particularly the way that they were attaching the lens in. So what this led to was that in 2017, I was just living my life, chilling at my friend's place, and suddenly I lost the vision in my left eye. It started going blurry, and it kept getting worse and worse until eventually I just could not see with it at all. This caused us to go to the ER, where they determined that the artificial lens that I have in my eye was rubbing against my iris, so the colored part of your eye, and that had caused the blood vessels to burst, and my eye had filled with blood, and that's the reason why I couldn't see. They basically did not do anything about it. They gave me antibiotics just to make sure that it wouldn't get infected while the blood drained out by itself, and it did. It took a few weeks and really sucked, but eventually it did. In 2018, I had an open heart surgery. I'm kind of planning on doing a whole video about that, because it was such a crazy experience to have at 17 years old. I had so many complications, and I feel like I definitely was a little bit maybe naive going into it and just not fully prepared. So if you're interested in hearing about how that went, let me know. So after this heart surgery, I had an infection in my heart that went undiagnosed for too long. Then I had atrial fibrillation. Sorry, I'm probably butchering that 3 times, and that is extremely dangerous. It can cause you to have a brain aneurysm. It's a form of arrhythmia. So I had that 3 times, and I had to get it fixed first 2 times with medication, and then the 3rd time I had to get the pulse fixed by being put under and then using electricity to just shock the pulse back to normal. I basically missed a whole school year. As you can probably imagine, my mental health also took a little bit of a hit. I'm not gonna go into any of that in too much detail right now, but as I said, I am planning on making a video, so then I'll do a little bit more of a deep dive. I had issues with the blood thinners, and one of these issues was that, remember in 2017 that little lens rubbing on eye mishap? Well, I had that again in 2018, a few months after my open heart surgery, and this time it really rubbed it. I remember noticing that my vision is going blurry, then looking in the mirror and seeing that my pupil was a really weird shape, and that freaked me out. So again, to the ER we went. It was the same thing, but now they realized that they do need to operate on it because it kept happening, and because I was on these blood thinners, it made it so much worse. obviously because the lens was making the blood vessels burst, but now I'm on blood thinners, so it's bleeding like crazy. In 2021, I had the scariest eye-related thing happen, which was that my retina tore. Again, I'm gonna flash the medical illustration. You need the retina to see, and if it detaches completely, you lose your vision. I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was hanging out with friends. I started seeing some lightning in my vision, which at the time I thought it was kind of like a migraine, because I do get auras when I get migraines, so I wasn't that alarmed about it. But then after going to bed and waking up in the morning, it was so much worse. Of course, we went to the ER and they said that it was only this other part of my eye detaching, which is actually not dangerous, believe it or not, and it can just happen to regular people as well, especially with age. But they said that that's just what is happening, don't worry about it. We got sent back home. So the next week we basically were going between home and the hospital almost every day because it wouldn't go away. And I also got another weird symptom. It looked like I was looking through honey. 1/3 of my vision was yellow and distorted, like heavily distorted. One evening we went to the ER again, and then the doctor said, oh yeah, your retina, it has a tear in it and we need to operate on it ASAP. So I was at the ER that evening, and then the next morning I was in surgery. Luckily, that surgery went well. Afterwards, I got a very weird symptom, which I still have to this day, and no one knows why or what's causing it. But basically, if I tilt my head down like this, my vision in my right eye goes completely blurry. I cannot see with it at all. They thought that it was the lens again, like maybe the lens is just swinging around there a bit. We can stitch it again in a new way. So they did that, and that was in 2022. That did not help with the symptom at all. So then in 2023, they suggested that maybe we just replace the whole lens. So we did. That also didn't help. It also gave me some other issues with my eye, like having very bad double vision, a lot worse than I had before. And also my eye just gets extremely dry. That kind of brings us to today. So in our Lord's year of 2025, how am I doing? I'm doing pretty good, actually. If you don't count the fact that my right eye really went through it in the past like 4 years, so many surgeries, and basically 2 or 3 of them for nothing. So that really pisses me off. But luckily, I live in the promised country of socialist Finland. All of my surgeries, all that stuff, we paid maybe 100 euros each. I cannot even imagine, for example, living in the States. We'd be on the street. Overall, the medical care that I've gotten has been really excellent, and a huge shout out to all the nurses. You guys are doing God's work, and you don't get paid enough, and you don't get enough appreciation. So what does my day-to-day life actually look like? Well, I wake up in the morning, I pop a couple beta blockers, and that's basically it. I can't do any intense sports or contact sport. I can't lift weights. I'll never go bungee jumping or skydiving or ride a really scary roller coaster. I mean, otherwise, my life is pretty normal. I go to checkups every 6 months to a year. Of course, like I mentioned, I still have all the sucky symptoms from the eye surgery. So especially for my right eye, it really sucks that I can't see when I look down. It affects so many things that you wouldn't even think about. So cleaning, cooking, reading, typing on a keyboard, just going downstairs. I'm also an art student, so you can imagine that it is a little bit tricky to not be able to look down. But overall, I'd say that my quality of life is actually quite good. I've been able to travel by myself. I went on an exchange, that foreign country being Ireland, which, you know, not the most extreme of destinations, but still. And of course, when I do travel, there are things that I have to take into consideration. I'm lucky and I'm grateful that I am still able to function completely independently. I know that some people have it way worse. I feel like nothing makes you appreciate normal or small things like having a chronic illness. So if you are lucky enough to have a completely healthy and functional body. Take good care of it and appreciate it and do crazy and wild stuff, but stay safe. And what does my future look like? Probably more eye surgeries, to be honest. Probably another heart surgery. That one they told me almost straight up after the first one that we are definitely gonna have to operate in the future. But they just said it might be in 5 years, or it might be in 15 years or 50 years. We might all die tomorrow. So what's the point in stressing about it too much? So yeah, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna put some resources in the description, for example the Marfan Syndrome Foundation, if you actually want to go and read about it from people who know what they're talking about, and also some mental health resources. Like I said previously, if you have a chronic illness, if you have Marfan or any condition that is kind of similar, please leave a comment. I'd love to have a little chat with you. If you just found this video informational, let me know. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I have a lot of exciting content planned for this channel, so if you're at all interested about my life with chronic illness, or going to art school, going on an exchange, how I tattoo with limited vision, all of that stuff, then please subscribe. I would love to see you in the next video. So bye bye.